right, now we're back to the vintage certification area, and this is where they really look at the car inside and out, and they've got a tremendous judging sheet for these cars. These are vintage cars that have not been restored, and they're trying to get them certified, so minimal work has been done to them over the year just to keep them on the road. So some very neat stuff in here. They put the car in a lift. They look at the underside of it. They look on top of it. They bring in experts in whatever the vehicle is and have them judge it. So I heard that they were looking for an expert for this 72 Chevelle. I wish they would have called me yesterday. It really could have helped out with the judging this car. But I was pretty busy yesterday, so probably didn't have the time to work on it. But this is a beautiful car. Wish I would have seen it on the lift. But unrestored. Very cool car. 1972 SS Chevelle. I looked at this car a little bit before the show opened up. And look at this. A 454 LS6 car. And so I can, just look at the cars. I mean, you can see they've been driven. And just minimal work. Look at the tailgate. I mean, no restoration work done on these cars. No repair work. Just here it is. This is what it looks like after 50 years of use. And it's cool that they have programs like this for cars. Not perfect, but people want to say, hey, this is an unrestored car, and they want to certify it. So this is what they do. And the program, as you can see, is huge. Got quite a few cars back here. And I know they don't have time to get all the cars in here that they want to, so they only take a certain amount of cars every year. But look at this Chevelle. Woo. Very nicely upkept. '54 LS6 car. And so I can, just look at the cars. I mean, you can see they've been driven. And just minimal work. Look at the tailgate. I mean, no restoration work done on these cars. No repair work. Just here it is. This is what it looks like after 50 years of use. And it's cool that they have programs like this for cars. Not perfect, but people want to say, hey, this is an unrestored car, and they want to certify it. So it is the legendary car, Arnie the Farmer Beswick. I guess he's going to be here, but here's the car he raced. And let me tell you, I saw him race. And he used to come to the Pontiac Nationals. I don't know if they still do, but I haven't been there in quite a few years. And I used to go to the Pontiac Nationals back in the 80s and early 90s on a regular basis before I got into Chevelles. And we'd always see him, because of course he's a much younger guy. And we always saw him race this car. He did some match racing on it, and it was very cool. I love the tiger paint job here. Just a cool car, a cool guy. He's always fun to talk to. Very neat. Boy, if you watch Meldrum's Monster Garage before, you know that I love Camaro pace cars. And this is the 53rd annual Indianapolis 500 official pace car. It's one of the cars that you could order. Okay, houndstooth orange interior, but this car is very special because it was owned by a veteran, Sergeant John Anderson. And he served in Vietnam and ordered the car, and when he got back, it was all ready for him. So he was in the airborne, and I was just reading the sign. Looks like he had been in the Vietnam conflict, and he's got photographs to confirm this was his car, and just an awesome looking car. Wow. I love seeing frames, and even though this is a Ford frame, it's just cool to see the car before the body goes onto it. And this is a pretty cool car. Wow. And we're actually planning on bringing our frame to the Cleveland IX Center in March. I don't know. Hopefully things will work out. We're going to fill out an application and maybe display that frame for the 66 Chevelle convertible. Look at this, W43 Oldsmobile. Oh my God. What a fantastic color for this 1970 442. And this is another over-the-top restoration, but oh, look at that engine. Woo! Very cool. Experimental assembly test vehicle. Wow, that is cool. We had a chance to judge Chevelle from the Paul Mitchell collection last year, and it looks like they bring back some more cars here, and this is a beautiful Pontiac Formula Firebird SD455, 1973, which this is one of the few cars that were basically escaping the smog wars and still getting out there with performance, so that's very cool. And of course, this is a beautiful Firebird we've got here, so very cool to be able to see these. See, they've got a Hurst Olds 455 over there, and they got a Pontiac Judge, but just some cool stuff. Got everything, including magazines. Man, I remember going through these magazines, trying to pick out what car I would own. And yeah, there's a lot of great memorabilia here that you can buy. So we'll go through there and see if they got any magazines that Meldrum Monster Garage is in. Who knows? All right, now you got the high school reunion. So these are cars that people actually drove to high school when they were back in the day. So they're maybe not as old as these cars, or drove them when back then, but hey, these were their cars that they drove to high school. Very cool. There's Mr. Carini looking at these high school cars, but very cool. And we've got quite a few friends in the display here. We'll get down to them pretty quick, but very cool cars. I remember seeing these cars back in when I went to high school back in 78 to 82 there. And we had these kind of cars. We had a 1971 Buick Skylark. My buddy had a 1969 Oldsmobile Cutlass that he drove to school. I remember a Monza with a V8 that we used to drive back and forth to high school. I remember a Mustang too. Didn't have any kind of horsepower, but we drove that back and forth to high school with my buddy. And here's Steve with his beautiful car. Beautiful 1970 Chevelle. Look at that. Hard to believe that Mr. Charney drove this car back in high school. I'm sure it didn't look this good. And then there's Mr. Reitler. He had this car when he was back in high school, and he's driven this car everywhere. He's done drag racing with it, and just very cool. And there's Mr. Grant. We judged his car yesterday. So it's good to see the car that they had back in high school, and he's still got his high school sweetheart. Ooh, it was a lot of fun judging this car. And then there's our buddy Bill Wente. We've judged numerous cars. He always comes to the Northern Ohio Chevelle Club show, and here's a car that he had in high school. Hard to believe, but it really is. And then there's a couple 67 cars down here. Jeff Helms, good friend of ours too. Great Chevelle. I would call him historian. He collects a lot of history on Chevelles, and he is just a wealth of knowledge on the 65 to the 67 Chevelles. He's always fun to talk to, and we always have spirited conversations about, did they paint a 66 Chevelle black between the rear taillights? And I will tell you for a fact that he says no, and he's got documentation to prove it. And let me go over and show you the only 66 Chevelle to leave the factory with black between the taillights. And of course, it became very popular with the 67. So there you go. There's the only 66 Chevelle that left the factory with black between the taillights. And that's because it was a black car. And this is a drop-dead, gorgeous black 66 Chevelle. Let me tell you some of the other reasons I think that the cars didn't leave the factory that way. There was rumor that it was the start of production, the end of production, and there was advertising material to confuse everybody. But when I was talking to Mr. Helms, he's got documentation that shows from GM that final production was not black between the taillights. He's got a letter from GM out of their archives showing what the final production 66 Chevelle looks like, and it wasn't black between the taillights. Some people say at the end of production that they painted them black between the taillights to basically practice for the 67 model year. But I have personally talked to a painter at the Atlanta plant in 1966, and he said we didn't need any practice to, paint the cars black between the taillights. The 67s came down the model line, and they were, it's not a big time process to paint those black between the taillights. We've done a 67 at Meldrum's Monster Garage, and it's no big deal. So there's a couple resounding facts. Other facts that I've heard from Mr. Helms is the Atlanta car, 23rd from the last of the line, and it wasn't black between the taillights. So I don't know. I've got enough proof to say it wasn't. Anything else is hearsay. A lot of dealerships did paint them black between the taillights because it was a good look. I got to admit, it looks cool. But a lot of people say, looks like a diaper on the back of the car. So there you go. Enough of what I've got to say.